Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, I have a mighty review of Need for Speed Heat. That's right, folks, going to be doing a bit of racing here today with Florida Man, because this game is actually set in Florida. I don't remember the name of the city, but it's essentially a fictitious Miami. But let's dive on into it here. The developer is Ghost Games. The publisher is EA Games. The engine is Frostbite 3. It was released for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Windows PC November of 2019. Now, I'm not going to get too in depth here in the story, but it's basically just generic street racer story where you get hooked up with a bunch of street racers and you essentially start a racing crew and blah blah blah. It's pretty much typical BS. Ends up kind of being like more B-rated Fast and Furious writing, but it's okay. The story's fine within the context of the game. I wouldn't say it's a great story, but it does work within Need for Speed, essentially. So, what did I enjoy about the game? I think the graphics are actually really stunning for this. They're definitely better than I would have anticipated them being. And honestly, didn't put a lot of stress on my GPU either. So it's very well optimized. Now, the car models are very superb, almost photorealistic. The car sounds are also very good as well. I really quite enjoyed the sounds of the cars. It's got a great selection of cars. The driving itself actually felt rather good. This is definitely one of the better driving experiences in a Need for Speed game I've had. That being said, though, I was still had some issues, which I'll dive on into here in a little bit. It does have a day-night cycle, which is interesting how it works out, because essentially you have closed street legal races, if you will, during the daytime. And then during the nighttime, you have illegal street races, which is used to grow your rep. So essentially daytime races like you're seeing here, closed circuit, don't have to worry about cops. Great for growing the bank, great for growing money. And then the night races is what you do to grow. You get some money, but it's mostly to gain rep. The next thing I actually quite enjoyed of the game is it's really not that grindy. I mean, yes, there's a bit of a grind, but it's not as bad as I anticipated. I actually anticipated a really horrible grind. It's got character selection. I think that's kind of cool. You can actually select what your driver looks like, and then the driver actually talks in this one, which I think is also cool as well. That's not something that we had really in previous Need for Speed games, where we actually had character selection the whole 9 yards. It would be usually either more or less an unnamed driver that we have no idea what they look like, which is kind of nice because you can kind of put yourself in the seat. Or we had characters that was like pre-made, and yeah, those characters ended up being cringe. We won't look at Need for Speed Rivals or Need for Speed Payback. Good custom. The customization on the cars is pretty good. A lot of freedom to it, but it's also really twitchy. And I still really don't even have a full hang of it after my playthrough of Need for Speed Heat. So, yeah, Need for Speed Carbon did it better, but this is better than I've seen from other sequels that followed Carbon, so I'll give it credit there. The police chases can get really intense. I mean, seriously. You're going from like one car following you to holy shit, I'm pretty sure the whole city is coming down on me. One thing I think is cool, and this is a really great feature, honestly, is you can actually get custom car layouts online that other people have created. So I think that's cool. You can port them into your save, and you don't really have to waste time with learning car customization. Now, mostly I messed with the car customization to find out what it was like. I didn't really mess with porting in other customizations that people have made, but I think I might check that out in the future myself. The game actually does have mod support. There's quite a few mods for this game already, more than I would have anticipated. Another thing that I thought was cool, and something I really don't see very often, is unlockables. This is kind of a trope in video gaming that's kind of faded away over the years, and it's actually nice to see it make a comeback. There's actually car damage mechanics as well, actually during police chases, that can be a real concern, as actually the police can actually take your car out, which I do like that. The car damage models are really cool, even though they're not exactly realistic. But at the same time, I also kind of have an issue with it. I'll dive into that here in a bit as well. Now, that being said, the game, for the most part, ran good. I didn't really see any glitches. Now, I did have moments where it would stutter a little bit, but generally speaking, it ran very well. Pretty much 60 FPS most of the time that I was running it. The final thing that I think is really good in this game is the general atmosphere. It's pretty much how I imagined Florida, more or less. It's got nice windy hills. It's got your flat areas. It's got more like a bayou area. So it's really interesting how they laid the map out. And I think it makes for a really nice atmosphere. Now, the stuff that I have gripes about. Here we go. First off, folks, this is 2017. Call me an old man. But Jesus, still can't customize my controls. Are you serious? I mean, like I said, it's 2017, folks. That's what this game's from. Need for Speed, I could do that in Need for Speed Carbon from 2006. This is 2 games in a row now in the modern Need for Speed series where I could not customize my control. Now, that being said, you can for the keyboard, but I was playing this with a controller, not a keyboard. So the fact that I couldn't do that, nah, that's BS at this point. It's way past due to have a feature like that in games. That should be pretty much a standardized feature at this point, in my opinion. Change my mind. Rubber Band AI, I didn't see this a lot, but I definitely did see the AI Rubber Band, which was kind of an issue with older Need for Speed games. So with the older games, one of the main problems with the AI was the AI actually really wasn't that good when it came to being race car drivers, essentially. So what they would do is they would make the AI have a rubber banding feature. And that essentially, the further you got away from them, the faster they would actually drive. And based on essentially how good you were driving, the AI would literally slingshot right past you. Which is a bit ridiculous, because no matter how good you did driving, no matter how close to the edge of control you took your car, no matter how fast you drove, you really weren't rewarded in the older Need for Speed games for that. Now, I'm going to say I didn't see it a lot, but I did catch a moment where a couple moments where I seen the AI slingshot past me. The next thing, the soundtrack. There it is. That's the soundtrack. Hot garbage. The worst soundtrack I've ever heard in a Need for Speed game. Now listen, call me stuck up. I'm a huge fan of Need for Speed Most Wanted, 2005, not 2015. And I'm a huge fan. I mean, I still think the best Need for Speed is Need for Speed Carbon, especially when you download the Redux mod. And the soundtracks in those games were way superior to this one. And from what I understand, actually, from reading some complaints online, it sounds like Need for Speed Unbound is even worse than this was. And this was hot garbage. I tolerated the music in this game for about 20 minutes, shut off, and turned on a music bot, just to put in perspective of how bad I thought the soundtrack was to this. There's no reason to listen to it. It doesn't set the mood. It doesn't put you into the game. The music really doesn't go with the game, to be honest. And I don't care if some dude named, B-Boy Dubstep, just released his hottest underground track ever. That doesn't belong in a Need for Speed game. Let's get some fucking metal in here. Anyways, car. Now, this is the part of the driving I had issues with. Now, in Need for Speed Rivals and Payback, I had issues with my car constantly drifting to the left, constantly steering left. I had that issue with this game as well, it wasn't as bad as some of the other Need for Speed games I've played. But yeah, it was still definitely an issue that my car kept drifting to the left. And I tried different things, including different controllers, and it was still an issue. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't as bad, but be aware that you may have issues if you plug a control up with your car steering to the left when you're not doing anything at all. The next huge thing I really have a complaint about, and this is also one that kind of bugged me about Need for Speed Payback, no rear view mirror. Folks, these come standard in cars now. Why is it not in the game? Or even an option to turn it on and off. Need for Speed Carbon had that. Need for Speed Most Wanted had that. Talking the 2005 version, not the 2015 version. I'm talking the good one, not the bad one. So, yeah, the rear view mirrors I never thought were great, but the fact is they were there. And they were usable. And here we are, 2017, no rear view mirror? Are you kidding me? That feels like a big, wow, we fucked that up. The character customization, honestly, is just really blah. I really didn't like any of the... It's kind of cool. You can change your headgear. You can have glasses, well, sunglasses. You can change your clothing, your shoes, the whole 9 yards. But, dude, I'm like, look at the clothing. It's like, people don't fucking dress like this. Like... They need to work on that part for sure. No pursuit breakers in this game. So one of the core mechanics of this game to gain reputation, of course, to essentially level up and customize your car and make it better, you need reputation. To gain reputation, you need to win races at night. Also, you need to have cops chase you. And you need to bust those cops up in the process. And there's no fucking pursuit breakers? Are you serious? We focus so much on making the game look pretty that we got rid of a core mechanic that was like a main part of the older Need for Speed games? Are you serious? Epic fucking fail. And then to make it worse is they add kill switches and damage mechanics. Listen, okay, if we're going to have a damage mechanic, which in my opinion we shouldn't have a damage mechanic because we don't have pursuit breakers. So you have no way of doing damage to the cop cars without fucking up your own car. And then there's a timed kill switch in the cars. So after so long, they can just shut your car off and you're screwed. Whatever. That just seems fucking lame to me. Especially when you're making pursuits the main feature of your game. Drifting mechanic. I have no idea why tapping my accelerator twice makes me do Tokyo drift stuff. Let's be honest here, folks. In previous games, you could do drifting. It wasn't a special mechanic. It was just something you had to learn how to do on yourself with the handbrake. And that's how it's done. It's not done by double tapping your accelerator. You got to use your fucking handbrake. I know this ain't a simulator. But really? And trust me, it was a pain in the ass because sometimes when I want to just slow down a little bit, I just let go of the accelerator and re-tap my accelerator. Oh, and then suddenly my car goes drifting. Come on. And that was a really big issue actually in the muscle cars where I'm more likely to tap my accelerator to slow down and make turns than any other cars out there. So basically, there was times I was drifting and I didn't want to drift. Like, it's fine that they have that as a mechanic, but use the fucking handbrake. Or just remove the mechanic and put it back the way it was because, I don't know, it worked. It worked for a long time. And now we got to have it as an actual mechanic where you got to double tap the accelerator? Actually, it's you got to tap and hold the accelerator and then turn. And your car will drift. You'll get to do, oh, cool Tokyo drift stuff. Oh, okay. It's cool doing Tokyo drift stuff, right? I think it's cool. It's gnarly. Looks great. Looks very Hollywood. But literally, get rid of the mechanic, because having it as a mechanic, fucking lame. Anyway, folks, here you go. The game is $70 on Steam for the deluxe edition. Personally, I think the game is mostly fine. There is definitely some things that I looked at and went, why would you do that? Obviously, because I've pretty much been very vocal about that kind of shit here. Because while I feel this is a game that in a step in the right direction to going back to what the Need for Speed games were, it's still not there yet. I don't understand how EA Games and the developers of these games have forgotten what made Need for Speed games great. And it's a real shame to see this. And honestly, right now as it stands, I was going to check out some of the other modern Need for Speed games, and now I don't think I'm going to. Because going by what I've seen online, on forums and etc., this is actually the best of the modern Need for Speed games. And while there was some things that impressed me, I wasn't extremely impressed with the game. That being said, I don't think it's a bad game. I think someone who this may be their first Need for Speed game, or they've only played the more modern Need for Speed games, would enjoy this. And I did have moments that I enjoyed it. Like I said, like when it came to the driving, I really enjoyed the driving for the most part. It was just the drift mechanic that kind of this kind of sucks. But at $70, that's really, honestly, in my opinion, that's really steep. I don't think the game is worth $70. I recommend getting it on sale for $35, $40. Because you pay any more than that, I think you're wasting your money no matter who you are. Anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap the video up at that. And I'm just going to go on back to Need for Speed Carbon Redux, because that's a better Need for Speed game than Need for Speed Heat. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.